If you think you know what war looks like, you might want to think again. Because according to some pretty extensive research put together for organizations like NASA and the Department of Defense, our entire understanding of conflict is about to be completely turned on its head by technology. So, what is the future of war? Let's really dive into that, because the answer is probably not what you're expecting. It's not about just making bigger and badder versions of what we already have. Nope. It's not about building bigger, more heavily armored tanks. That's really the old way of thinking. And it's not about designing faster jets that can outfly anything in the sky either. The whole industrial age of warfare, it's really coming to a close. The future of conflict is smaller, it's way smarter. In the battlefield, it's literally everywhere. And this isn't some far-off sci-fi prediction. This massive shift is already happening right now. To really get our heads around this new era of warfare, we have to look at the huge technological shifts that are driving it all. And this isn't just a slow evolution, it is a full-blown revolution in pretty much everything. You see, we're living through what the source material calls a triple revolution. First, you've got information technology, which is expected to get another 1,000,000 times better. Then there's biotechnology, which opens the door to everything from genetic engineering to maybe even doubling our lifespan. And finally, nanotechnology, creating things like living factories and materials 600 times stronger than steel. It's just incredible. Now, what's really wild when you look at this slide is the acceleration. Just look at how fast things are moving. The agricultural age, that lasted for thousands of years. The industrial age, about a century and a half. The IT age was just 70 years. And now we're in the bio/nano age, where huge changes can happen in months, not decades. And this chart illustrates another key driver. Power is spreading out. Economic and tech power isn't just in one or two places anymore. For example, the US produces about 18% of the world's GDP, and something like 70% of research happens somewhere else. What that means is a major military competitor could now emerge from almost anywhere on the globe. So with all these new drivers in place, what kind of weapons are these revolutions actually creating? Well, welcome to the new era of warfare on the cheap. You know, the old industrial model, that required huge amounts of money, massive armies, and these enormous logistical chains just to keep things going. The new model? It completely flips that on its head. It's all about low-cost, networked swarms of smaller assets and a tiny logistical footprint. And this is the engine behind it all, the explosion in computing power. By 2030, a regular home computer is expected to have the processing power of a small town. This incredible growth is exactly what makes autonomous, robotic warfare not just possible, but pretty much inevitable. So what does this new arsenal actually look like? Well, a lot of it is nearly invisible. We're talking about things called smart dust, tiny little sensors that just float in the air, or nanotags to track literally everything. There's even weaponized dust that, if you breathe it in, mechanically bores into your lung tissue. And get this, the source document calls this a wholly new class of weaponry, which is legal. But not everything is microscopic. Meet the Slingatron. It's basically a gigantic ground-based spiral accelerator, and it can launch thousands of small projectiles a minute to anywhere on Earth. The document calls this a poor man's global precision strike system. It's a way to get superpower level results for a tiny fraction of the cost. So we have new drivers, we have these wild new weapons, but where will these future wars be fought? The unsettling answer is everywhere. This isn't just about fighting in a different place. It changes everything. The whole idea of a home front, a place that's safe from the fighting, that's dissolving. Just chew on this single data point from the source material for a second. About 80% of the US population and its critical infrastructure is within 50 miles of a coastline. This creates a massive exposed target for all sorts of things, from drones to underwater missiles. The homeland is just not a sanctuary anymore. And to make this really hit home, the NASA document lays out this absolutely chilling scenario. How could just 10 people with less than $10 million bring a superpower to its knees? Well, step 1, a binary bioattack, hidden in things like imported vitamins or clothes. Step 2, attack a few key infrastructure nodes, like the handful of computer sites that run the entire railroad or banking system. And step 3, launch a massive psychological warfare campaign to create panic and chaos. And that last step, psychological warfare, that brings us to the final and maybe the most disturbing frontier of future conflict:
the human mind itself.
Psywar, psychological warfare. It's defined in the NASA document as a type of non-explosive warfare. But what's really fascinating and a little creepy is that the presentation specifically listed under the heading what is apparently legal. This whole concept of Psywar is taken even further in a totally separate, unclassified document. Now, we want to be really clear here. We are just presenting what's in this source. And it outlines a truly chilling vision for what it calls psionic warfare, a kind of conflict aimed not at buildings or armies, but directly at human consciousness. And according to the table of contents in this thing, the techniques they talk about are, well, they're disturbing. They include things like weaponized narrative memes, thought scripting, and even remote memory erasure and planting. The whole point is to manipulate how a target perceives reality itself. So where does all this lead? Well, when you start combining miniaturization with robotics and these psychological operations, you end up in a future that is, frankly, unthinkable. There's a really powerful quote near the end of the NASA presentation that kind of sums it all up. It says that just like nuclear and biowarfare became unthinkable in the last century, conventional warfare, with tanks and jets, might become so deadly that it becomes unthinkable in this one. Which leaves us with a final lingering question. If conventional, physical war becomes obsolete because it's just too devastating, what happens when the new battlefield isn't a place you can find on a map, but is the human mind itself?